Thanks for joining us Behind the Frontline, a podcast providing timeless solutions to everyday workforce and workplace challenges. Frontline Training Solutions is an express employment professionals company, strategically placed between the workplace and the workforce with professionals standing by, ready to combat your unique challenges. Learn more about what we do at frontlineon.com. Thanks for tuning in to this special segment of Behind the Frontline, where we went to Denver, Colorado to the Express Employment Professionals International Leadership Conference, and we sat down with some of the top staffing leaders around the country and asked them questions about what challenges they are seeing in the workplace and the workforce, and their thoughts about how companies can become and stay employers of choice. Like anything you hear and want to know more, contact us at frontlineon.com or reach out to your local Express Employment Professionals near you. So now we're joined again with Bill Stoller, CEO and founder of Express Employment Professionals International. We're so happy that you are with us today. And of course, Mike Heffner, who's the franchisee for Indianapolis South. Thank you both for being here. And of course, Janice Petrini, who is our owner. All right. So.
No, she's really the expert.
She's the expert.
That's right.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Sitting with the experts right here.
Sitting with the experts. So, Bill, first question is for you. I would love to know, as you lead a global workforce management company, what challenges are you seeing from your perspective in the areas of the workforce and the workplace, and what creative solutions have you seen to combat some of these challenges?
Well, if you look at it internationally, each country does have its own problems and issues. I was recently in South Africa, and they seem to be able to recruit pretty well for their jobs. And there's a lot of unskilled jobs down there, and they have very high unemployment. But the number of people we employ is, what do we do? We averaged 5,500 last year in South Africa. Australia's a little different. I think it's closer to full employment, and it's a little more difficult to attract people. But they're slowly catching on and following, our system, which, you've got to be out recruiting and you got to be out calling on clients and so forth. Now in the U.S. And Canada, I think, is a little bit like Australia, but they've done well the last couple of years in comparison to our overall, and so their recruitment. I'm not as close to it, but they've done well. Now the U.S. These two are the experts on the U.S. What I'm seeing is the industry really started going down about 18 months ago. And it was about 2 years ago when the interest rates started going up.
That's right.
And I think there's been a direct correlation with the interest rates increases and our industry. Now, I just read where in February, the temporary help number of people dropped by 14,500. And so we're still in that phase, but what I'm surmising from a company standpoint is they're really not adding because they don't know exactly when things are going to get better, even though they're not in bad shape right now. I mean, everybody seems to be getting some profits, but I think once interest rates start going down, then they'll have a chance to expand because of the high interest rates. To borrow off of that is really expensive for them. So I think they're really not borrowing and they're not adding people, and I think our industry suffers from that standpoint because they just keep their people that are already working there. So I'm hoping for the second half of the year that I think things will start getting better.
That is fantastic insight. Mike, what about your local area in Indianapolis South? What are some of the challenges you're seeing in the local workforce and workplace?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a mismatch of the jobs that are open and the people that are looking. I use this as my visual a lot, where you got these are the people available and these are the people that need jobs, and they're not matching up. So it's definitely become a more skilled environment right now, where the employers are looking to upgrade or find the skilled help that they need. The general warehouse side of things, there seems to be plenty available in that marketplace, but we've seen an uptick in our office services and our skilled trades and professional business as of late.
That's fantastic. So, Bill, what areas do you feel we need to pivot most in order to serve our clients with talent solutions?
Well, I think we need to pivot from less unskilled to more skilled labor. I was in Fort Myers a couple weeks ago, and we called on a company that does specialty metal, and so they're a fab shop, and they have needs for experienced welders and experienced machinists, as well as some higher level positions. So we've got to pivot to the more skilled area and the more educated area, and probably the professional area as well.
That's fantastic insight. Janice, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that, the light industrial area, I think some would say that has been in a recession on the light industrial side, that definitely the worker of the future is going to need to go from being a level 1 entry-level worker to a level 2. So we're really seeing a big rise in semi-skilled to skilled trades, that it's no longer a entry-level worker that is going to be going into the workplace, that companies need semi-skilled, especially with automation and just with the type of skill level that's needed to run machinery and a lot of this automation. So I would say that it's challenging for the workforce that is truly very entry-level, because there's not a lot of openings for them. And so our goal as, I think, a company and really for the workforce is to really be able to provide opportunities for them to get from level 1 to level 2. And there's a lot of free training through our education partners. There's a lot of funding coming through to provide skills for that entry-level workforce. And I think as business owners, we need to be able to be the bridge for that workforce to that additional training. And we also have a lot of training that we can offer to the workforce.
That's so good. Mike, what do you think? What areas do we need to pivot?
Well, I think part of it's going back to the experience in our offices for the associate when they come in. Through COVID, we kind of got away from that a little bit just because it was just the time that we were in. But I look at what we're seeing now is back to when it was like 2012 to 2015 timeframe, and really providing a great experience for that associate when they came in. And we're starting to see that in reviews. We're starting to see that in what people are saying in the referral. We're seeing more candidates come into our office because of the referrals, because of the experience that they had actually in the office.
That's so good. So I'm going to pivot for a second. And Bill, your opening address yesterday morning was so well done. It was done with such grace and care. And you are such a fantastic role model for leadership. So I would love to hear what advice that you have for leaders out there who are listening to this podcast, or leaders within our company and organization, as they lead themselves, their teams, and their organizations.
Well, I think the first thing is you got to know your customer. Man, you've really got to, play to their needs. And our customers are our franchisees.
That's right.
And so I think sometimes we try to do too much. So too much is not always good. So, but, training is really important. And I think, putting together a training program, not only internally that we have, but also for our franchisees' employees. And our people have done a great job online, and so that's big. Other primary thing is I think you need to be transparent, and you need to be open and direct, and tell it like it is. And one of the things I mentioned yesterday that I discovered is, we do a lot of good communication, but we're really not putting the why in our communication if we're changing something. And so I think a leader needs to make sure that the communication has the why, as well as then, as I said, just be transparent and open.
Yeah.
And like anything else, you got to set the example.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, transparency builds trust. And I really liked that moment in your speech where it's kind of like a fireside chat. You sat down. There's some humility in there and transparency, vulnerability. There's a lot of people in the room that were buzzing about that. I would love to personally know, what's some of the best leadership advice that you ever received that you took to heart?
Leadership advice? Well, I think a leader also needs to, when you do develop people, you've got to delegate. And I just, because the people that are in the positions know much more than you. And if you have a good communication link with those people that report to you, that's just extremely important. But then we have to, a company and a person has to do a better job of getting that down to the rest of the people. And it really comes down to making sure your people are passionate about what they do. And I don't think there's any question that our headquarters people are there to service franchisees. And that's their total job. And they understand it, and that's what they do. And, you know, people in the field don't always see what they have to go through in terms of emergencies, when it's a software issue or a computer issue, to an accident that happens, and we need to be available to provide some sort of advice on what kind of communication should go out to people.
That's so good. I would love to hear from Mike and Janice on this one. You know, we're always talking about creating or helping companies become and stay employers of choice. You know, a company where people want to work there. I would love to hear what kind of creative solutions the two of you have worked up in your local areas to help companies become and stay employers of choice.
Well, I think it really comes down to, like, one of the things that Janice started Frontline with was it's that frontline leader. And we see so many times when, I like to say, we can put people into jobs, but if you can't keep them, we both stink at it. And so it's a situation where if we don't have good places for people to work and they don't have good supervision, they're not going to stay there no matter what. So I personally feel like that's a place where we can really help them. We spend a lot of time in the taking of the job order process to help them with, hey, this is what you need to be doing as part of this onboarding process, and as part of, you know, we can find a good person for you, but you've got to be able to keep them.
So true. So true.
Yeah, you know, we're on the front line every day, you know, the bridge between the workforce and the workplace. So we see when companies are doing it really well, and then we see when companies have a lot of opportunities. But I would say that what we see is that certainly that welcome and that onboarding is so critical, that 90% of people decide if they're going to stay at a company based on their first day experience. So it needs to be an oh wow. I also think that first 90 days, 50% of people are still deciding if they're going to stay there after the first 90 days. So that continued path, do I have a friend at work? Do I have a mentor? Do I know what my training path is going to look like? And then the company has to continue to be able to retain that person. So the companies that we see that do it really well have a depth of care for their employees and their families in today's world, especially post-COVID. They're creating a place of belonging, and they're creating a place where employees can thrive.
That's right.
And this generation has been heavily oriented their entire lives since preschool. They're the majority of the workforce now. And so they're looking for their pathway. They're looking for a company that's going to help them to grow and develop both personally and professionally. And so I think companies that are spending a lot of attention on that have put great things in place for that to be delivered all the time, are the ones that are winning and retaining. And retention is the best attraction strategy that you can have. And so companies definitely need to be focused on it.
That's right. And I love that, creating a culture of belonging, onboarding well. Bill, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I believe that, you know, there are some companies that really pay attention, really have a great culture, have a great work comp or a safety program, and you just want to work for them. And then there's those that aren't. And it's a little bit like one of our associates. sometimes they just don't have the soft skills available, or they're not knowledgeable of them. And so we have to help that, and when we can. But, when I go out to a client, I'm trying, especially one that's not a desirable company to work for, if they can listen, if they will listen to you, you want to find out why their culture is the way it is, why their turnover might be the way it is, and from a safety standpoint, if they have bad work comp, we can actually go in and help them if they are willing to allow that to happen.
Yes, we can.
And, certainly Janice has done that, not necessarily just to the companies that aren't great to work for, but I'm sure she has. But it all comes down to the culture of the leadership of the company. And
That's right.
If they want to be helped, they can be helped. Unfortunately, I think it's more the other way. But again, we have ways that we can help them. Our safety department is just super, and so they can help a company. And many times they'll go out to the company itself and show some of the issues. And some of the companies are probably more entrepreneurial based, so they haven't filled in all the gaps that they've had either. But they still have potential. So anyway.
That's such fantastic insight. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have one final question, and this one's for me personally. When I think of Express Employment International and the 41 years of just brand reputation that you guys have built into just the excellence of workforce and workplace management, I'm so curious, since you were there at the beginning, what were some of the key factors early on in the early days of the company that contributed to the Express Employment Professionals brand success and making it a leading international talent solutions company over its 41-year history?
I think the first thing is that the founders needed to set the example, and they needed to show potential franchisees what it takes, and it took an investment in your business to hire the right people, to make sure you had your sales and business development in line. So that was a lot of it, but. The first people that became licensees at the time and then franchisees were really formerly with the same company we were with. And I think they had a significant trust in the founders from the beginning.
Yes.
And, Bob had his in the Southwest, and Jim Gray had his in the primarily Colorado area, and then most of mine connections were the West Coast. But when you just have the chance to go down and sit down with them and show them what we have to offer, and that was the key. But I will also say that I've been wrong. One of the first things that we thought of was brand and brand loyalty.
That's right.
We had none. We had none. And I remember one of our franchisees stood up and said, and this is where I differed with him, I'm the brand in my market.
That's right.
And that took a while to sink in. And he was right. He was right. So when we were also then able to build up our national advertising fund, and it's not just national advertising. I don't think that does it for you. It's the local franchisee that really does it. But if we can back them up with programs, lunch and learns, whatever it might be, to get our word out there.
That's right.
Now, we've also gone to smaller communities to begin with, and people could run cable advertising for next to nothing. And so that helped some of them as well. But we just had really good people that were really wanting to get into the staffing business.
Yeah.
That came with us, and that was a big help. And then when I don't know what the number is, maybe it's 250 offices, then you really pick up a brand, and you'll have an associate go from one office, move to another state, and they'll go to Express.
That's right.
And the same thing happens with customers. You know, if they leave one company and go to the next. I mean, I was in Racine, Wisconsin earlier last year, and their number one client happened to be a client in Red Wing. And so he was the one that used Express. So he called up the Red Wing franchise and referred them to the Racine office.
Happens all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. But it wouldn't happen if we had like 100 offices.
It's true.
You've got to have that. And we're in all but 2 states right now. So and the other 2 states are pretty small and don't have a large market. But that's actually been one of the most enjoyable things to see is just our brand name has really done really well.
It has, and I attribute success to what you guys have done early on in the Express career and the history. And I love that you talked about brand loyalty, and that's what I think of like the associate for life, you know, because the brand loyalty that they will choose to come back. And I had a conversation earlier that every associate that we place is a representation of our brand because we are putting them out there and we are representing the Express name. And I'm just in awe of what you guys have built. And it's an honor for me to be a part of it because branding is my life and it's what I breathe and dream. And it's a pleasure to be with a company that has so much brand loyalty and success over 41 years. So thank you so much for spending the time with me right now to talk. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Nick.
This has been an
Thank you,
absolute
Bill.
pleasure.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
Nick.
Thanks.